As a Boise State Public Radio listener, we're inviting you to share your opinions about technology in our annual survey about how you use the radio, social media, smartphones, tablets, streaming, and the web to stay connected. We hope you'll find it to be an interesting way to reflect on your own changing habits. Please take a few moments to participate, and thanks for helping Boise State Public Radio plan for the future. Take the survey now at boisestatepublicradio.org.
More Idaho Matters now from the studios of Boise State Public Radio News. I'm Gemma Gaudet. Last week, the National Integrated Drought Information System briefed the region's wildland firefighters, water managers, and utility company officials on what they can expect for the rest of the summer. And as our George Prentice reports, the news was not good.
This summer's drought outlook was bound to be bad. Following an extremely warm winter and a rapid snowmelt meant almost all of southern Idaho would end up in a severe water shortage.
Currently, about 72% of the area in the west is covered by drought.
That's Dan McAvoy from the Western Regional Climate Center. He joined a panel of researchers, including Brad Pugh of the Climate Prediction Center, who says the next couple of weeks will likely see some of the highest temperature readings of the year.
Right now, we do have extreme heat warnings ongoing.
Kathleen Clow of the Desert Research Center put a finer point on the forecast for the region's wildfire managers.
So today as a nation, we're at preparedness level 4, meaning that national resources are heavily committed.
And with Idaho's increasing levels of drought, she says the wildfire risk continues to climb.
For the rest of the summer, above normal significant fire potential is forecast for portions of south central Idaho.
George Prentice, Boise State Public Radio News.
And that outlook, well, it was not news to Liz Davey, program director of the Greater Yellowstone Fire Action Network. She's been concerned at how much this year's fire potential looks compared to 1988, when the devastating Yellowstone National Park fires burned 36% of the landscape. She lives in Driggs now, but 38 years ago, she worked for the U.S. Forest Service when those fires broke out. And Liz is joining us live now to talk more. Liz, welcome to the program. It's really nice to have you with us.
Thanks for inviting me, Gemma. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show.
So, Liz, I want you to take us back to 1988. There's a lot of folks that don't remember that fire season and what happened at Yellowstone. So remind us about the wildfires that hit Yellowstone National Park that summer.
The wildfires in 1988 started around July, and it was in conditions that had built up just like the conditions are today. We went into winter in 25 and 26 in a drought. And the winter, as you just heard, didn't stack up very well. We didn't have a heavy snowpack. We didn't have much moisture entering the ground. The vegetation isn't taking up the water. And so things are quite dry. Of course, we all saw that we were wearing t-shirts in March, which was really weird. And then we also noticed that in May and June, we had a lot of rain. But what happens when we have a lot of rain in the spring is we get vegetation putting on a lot of growth. And now, as you all have experienced over the last few days, it has been dang hot, very windy, and that's just drying everything out and stacking up for wildfires, just like it did in 1988. The first fire in 88, or the major fires, the North Fork fire, started in July 22nd, just a week from now. Oh. And that burned for 4 months in Yellowstone and threatened Old Faithful and the town of West Yellowstone. So things are stacking up, and we can only hope that we don't get starts like by lightning or humans, so that we don't see the same conditions happen again, either in the Yellowstone area or across Idaho.
So, Liz, just how devastating were those fires? I mean, all you have to do is look at video of it, and it's truly shocking.
It is, and it was in 1988. Those of us, which I can't believe people weren't around then, like people weren't born. Yeah. It was a fireshed moment in my career for sure. But people thought that Yellowstone was destroyed. And our ecosystem relies on fire. It depends on fire. It's a natural occurrence in the greater Yellowstone area and in many places in Idaho. And it all came back. And we exhibit that. The Greater Yellowstone Fire Action Network, along with our partners, the Nature Conservancy, developed an audio tour on travel stories that tells that whole story. So if you're hanging out in Yellowstone this summer, download that audio tour and just listen and look at the pictures. But yes, people thought it was devastating. But when you drive through there now, you don't even know that you're driving through an area that was completely burned and now has regenerated into lodgepole
Mm.
pine, Doug fir, beautiful grasses. The wildlife have great habitat. So it wasn't really destroyed. But lots and lots of people were in Yellowstone and the surrounding forest fighting fire. A lot of people were away from their homes for months, and it finally was put out by Mother Nature and snow.
So, Liz, you kind of walked us through what happened in 1988. Can you kind of dig a little bit deeper and compare those conditions? I mean, when you talk about 1988, right? That mild winter, then the rain, then the vegetation, and truly compare it to what you're seeing on the ground today. Because at least from a weather standpoint, it certainly feels eerily similar.
Yeah, I agree with you, Gemma. And in 1988, a lot of the fires were fueled by lots and lots of dead trees that had been killed by bark beetle. And we're in that same
Mm.
situation now. We still have a lot of dead trees that were killed by bark beetles starting in the 2000s. And that's what's burning. We're also seeing, though, because of changes in our climate and changes in vegetation moisture, we're seeing areas that burned in 1988, 38 years ago, burning again, which was not seen in 88. Usually it was very mature timber stands, primarily lodgepole pine, but a few other vegetation types burned. But now, because of the drought and how long we've been without good moisture in the winter, we're seeing those same conditions, and there is a buildup of dead and down material that definitely adds fuel to the fire. But I want to stress it is natural. It's how these ecosystems evolved.
So, Liz, are there any red flags that you're seeing with this year's conditions that truly have you concerned? I mean, as you said, yes, this is normal and natural. These fires are, but we're talking about devastating fires back in 1988.
Yeah, and the red flags now is that we have had population growth, we've had communities expand, we've had a lot of building in what we call the wildland urban interface, that area up against heavily vegetated, forests and national parks. And people are building in those areas where they did not build in 1988. So the worry in 1988 was making sure we were looking to save towns like West Yellowstone or Cook City. But now we're looking at saving, and I put that in quotes, communities and developments and
Mm.
people's homes that have built up against that big fuel source, the national forests and the national parks. So to me, that's a red flag because that wasn't here in 1988. And we're firefighters and fire managers are dealing with that concern as well.
Well, and that's such a good point, Liz. I mean, that wildland urban interface. I mean, we see that here in the Treasure Valley. When all you have to do is look in the foothills and look at the Claremont fire that's been happening, right? And the fact that we have homes in that wildland urban interface, and even in Yellowstone, it's the amount of people that visit Yellowstone National Park has grown exponentially since 1988. So when you think about that, does it change how fires are fought when now you're not just looking at trying to get out a fire, you're trying to get people out of that area?
Yeah, and that's true. And in 88, times were way different. A friend of mine, Joan Anselmo, who was the public information person in Yellowstone, she said in 1988, we'd open the park and tourists would come through and see stuff, and then we'd close the park and close areas. And she said now, as we were working on that audio tour, she said, we would just close the park, period. And so all those
Mm.
visitors who would be coming, it's on their bucket list to go to Yellowstone or Grand Teton or the surrounding forest, they wouldn't even be able to come here and they'd be looking for something else to do. So yeah, that managing the people, and every year you hear of how records are broken by the number of visitors to Yellowstone and Grand Teton. Those people would be rerouted, redirected, going someplace else. And this economy over here in the eastern part of Idaho and western Wyoming is based on tourism. And so
Mm.
nowadays, I think we'd have a huge effect. In 1988, a lot of people didn't come because of the smoke and the media saying, "Oh, Yellowstone is devastated, Yellowstone is destroyed." But then there were still people who would come because the park was open, which was different, and they managed the people coming in and out of the park differently.
So, talk to us about the Greater Yellowstone Fire Action Network. What is it? What do you do?
Yeah, the Greater Yellowstone Fire Action Network, we formed just a few years ago in 2022. Myself and two other colleagues had this dream, and we wanted to connect people who were working on wildfire mitigation, teaching folks or helping people live with wildfire and smoke. We wanted to connect them, network them, combine things because resources to do mitigation work are limited, as you well know. And so we wanted to capitalize on our efforts and work together in places that mattered and on topics that mattered, to save resources, but also to share and learn and not reinvent the wheel. So the Greater Yellowstone Fire Action Network came about, and we are working with a variety of communities in the Greater Yellowstone area who have a mitigation initiative, who have a mitigation group, who have people who are passionate about this. And learning and responding to living with fire and smoke. We've helped communities develop smoke-ready plans because you all know even if there isn't a fire nearby, you're definitely seeing smoke. And what do you do about it? How do you get through it? How do you feel better? How do you get outside and not affect your lungs, or at least still have a decent day? How do you sleep at night? And so we're helping
Mm.
people get through that and putting out messaging to that effect. We also work on the workforce and attracting people to do wildfire mitigation work. And we've gotten a lot of contractors involved who will go and help landowners, homeowners, private individuals develop defensible space around their home so that they can feel good if a wildfire comes knocking at their back door, that their house will be fairly protected from fire, depending on the work they've done. Also doing a lot of outreach and education, teaching folks about the natural events of fire. What is fire? Why is it out there? How does it burn? How would it affect your home? Things like that. But mostly providing people with resources to mitigate, to be able to live with wildfire and smoke in the
Mhm.
community that they live in.
And Liz, you mentioned this audio tour, and I know you helped put it together, and it's called Follow the Flames. Walk us through this. How does it work?
Oh yeah, it's a cool thing. I was impressed. It's Travel Stories is the platform that it's on. It's a GPS run platform. You download Travel Stories onto your phone. It's a free app. You query, search for Follow the Flames, download it before you lose cell coverage. And it starts in West Yellowstone and goes all the way to Old Faithful. It has 10 different stops. And as you travel along, those stops the words, the story is queued up as you go through that part of the audio tour, and it explains what you're seeing all around you. So it might explain, like, this is Young Lodgepole next to you, and it was created by the 1988 fires. It will
Hmm.
explain about the cones that open up and drop seed on the ground, in which, creates those dog hair. Picture dog hairs, they're all close together and you can't walk through them. These dog hair lodgepole pine stands. Or it talks about look at the greater landscape and see the pattern on it. It talks about the indigenous burning cultures that were involved or are involved in the greater Yellowstone area. Talks about the firefighters at that time, who they were, what they did, what firefighting is all about, the hand crews, the people, those 20-person crews that are out there building line. And importantly, when you get to Old Faithful, it talks about how that North Fork fire threatened Old Faithful and how, quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote, Old Faithful was saved. That to me was just like this most beautiful story. Farmers from the community of Ashton, Idaho, were asked to help solve the issue of getting water onto the buildings. So they loaded up semi-loads of irrigation pipe from Ashton, Idaho, drove it all the way to West Yellowstone and eventually into Old Faithful, set up irrigation pipe. So you can picture that from the fields around that you see the irrigation pipe, set it up on all the buildings, and started a big water flush onto the buildings that saved Old Faithful. So it's just cool stories like that that are through there. There's 10 different stories, and they're few minutes, 5 to 7 minutes long, and you just listen to them as you're looking around and seeing the effects of the fire. We developed
And
this
Liz,
audio tour because we wanted people to understand what they were looking at.
yeah, absolutely. So Liz, before I let you go, I was told you're stepping down soon from the Greater Yellowstone Fire Action Network. So what's next for you?
I am. I'm going to play. I'm going to hike and
Oh, good for
bike and
you.
ski and hang out in the landscape I love.
Well, Liz, thank you so much for taking time for us today. We've been talking with Liz Davey. She's program director of the Greater Yellowstone Fire Action Network, talking about this year's wildfire outlook and comparing it to those fires of 1988 in Yellowstone. You've been listening to the Idaho Matters podcast from Boise State Public Radio. To stay in touch, you can find quick Idaho daily news every morning when you subscribe to the Connector podcast. If this podcast has become a part of your routine, can you tap 5 stars and leave us a review? It helps us stand out.
So you can't see this, but hopefully you can hear it. Behind every Boise State Public Radio podcast is a team working hard to bring you stories that matter. So if you value podcasts like this one, please support them. Hit donate at boisestatepublicradio.org. Thanks.